Guys, so, really appreciate you both, active board members, great business leaders. Want you to take turns introducing yourself for the listeners. And so, Matt, why don't we start off with you?
Sure. So Matt Hyatt, I own a company called Rocket IT, which I started here in Gwinnett a little over 30 years ago. I was 25 years old, and that's what I've been doing most of my adult life.
Great. And what does Rocket IT do?
We're an IT department for other businesses and nonprofit organizations. Okay. So we'll step into an organization, typically 25 to 250 employees, and we'll take responsibility for IT strategy, cybersecurity, and day-to-day help desk support.
Okay, great, awesome. Billy Milan.
That's me. Yeah, thank you, Nick. I'm CEO of EmployBridge. EmployBridge is a staffing recruiting firm. We specialize in kind of everything blue collar, based out of here in Gwinnett County, right across the street from us. We're the largest light industrial staffing company in the United States. So in 48 states, North Dakota is one that we're not in, and Alaska's the other. But we're in 48 states, span the country, dabble in Canada a bit as well. But really, blue collar is our focus. That's what we do. Anything from skilled trades, think electricians or plumbers, to picker packer in a warehouse, forklift drivers, and that sort of thing. So we staff for over 15,000 clients, like I said, nationwide, and have remained very disciplined over the years and not going outside of kind of what our core competency is, what our focus is, what our discipline is.
Very cool. And how long have you been with the organization?
I was with a company called Hire Dynamics. Started there about 6 years ago. Before that, I was with Racetrack, the convenience store company, where I'd spent 22 years there. So a little bit of a career pivot. But Hire Dynamics was looking for a CEO. Had a good friend who kind of talked me into it. He'd been one of the founders of Hire Dynamics. Taught me into leaving Racetrack to join Hire Dynamics. I did that for 2 years. We grew the company pretty quickly, and then ended up selling it after 2 years to EmployBridge. And as we brought those two companies together, EmployBridge was significantly larger than Hire Dynamics. Brought those two companies together 4 years ago, and have continued to build since then.
And you're now the largest light industrial staffing company in the United States.
That's right.
That's awesome. I don't know that I knew that. That's very cool.
Right here in little old Gwinnett, right?
Yeah, well, not little old Gwinnett. We just hit 1 million people. We're twice the size of the city of Atlanta.
Yeah, I know.
I just like to say that.
All right, big old Gwinnett. We're
right there.
You go,
big old Gwinnett. It's great. Gwinnett is great. I coined the phrase "success lives here." Have you heard that?
Yeah. You get a nickel every time I think somebody says that, right?
Wow. I didn't coin the phrase.
Okay.
Well, awesome. That was exciting. I love when I learn something. That's great.
I didn't realize we were going to make things up on this podcast. This will be a lot more fun.
Our massive audience will fact check.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Right,
heads up. Well, guys, we're going to talk about inclusivity in the workforce, something that's near and dear to the hearts of businesses in Gwinnett County, as we are, the U.S. Census says we're the 5th most diverse county in the U.S. And niche.com, I know you guys are big subscribers and fans of, last year claimed that Gwinnett County is the most diverse county in the United States because they use the census data from the federal government, but they included age diversity. And when you throw in age, and our 1 million people are varied ages, and they said we are the #1 most diverse county. So that's a topic that comes up a lot in the hallowed halls of the Gwinnett Chamber. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and we'll just start off. I'll just softball out just to get us started. What has your experience been with that in your organization, or you as a leader? And we'll go from there. And Billy, if you want to start this time.
Yeah, to us at EmployBridge, it always goes back to our purpose: champion people, unlock potential. If you follow anybody from EmployBridge on LinkedIn, you will see that repeated incessantly, internally and externally. And to me, it goes back to what is it that we do? We get people jobs. So how do we champion somebody? How do we pull somebody up? And then how do we unlock their potential? And I think that's hand in glove with what we're talking about here. How do we partner with people? How do we mentor people to give them the opportunity to be able to do something maybe different than what they expected to be? And part of that goes into exclusivity and belonging. We do a Glint survey. Glint's the name of the company that does this for a lot of different companies, but we do that 3, sometimes 4 times a year. And the last couple of times I've been very pleased with our number one area. Our number one strength has always been around inclusivity and belonging at Employee Bridge. I can be myself here. I don't have to put on airs. I can be myself. And I'm connected to our purpose of championing people, unlock potential. And so it's all about lifting somebody up, giving them that opportunity to maybe do something different. I tell people all the time, I said the coolest examples are the ones we have somebody walk into one of our branches and say, I just wanted to stop in. I came in here 3 years ago. I was down on my luck. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't have a job. I walked in. You guys gave me a temporary role at one of your client sites. Worked hard. I went to a full-time role, which we celebrate. We lose them as a talent, but they go into a full-time role. We celebrate that, and I've been promoted twice, and now I'm a manager.
Great. I want to circle back on after Matt goes, your mission statement and then meeting people where they're at. Yeah. I love that. I've grown a lot in that, and I want to just dissect it. Matt, what about you?
Well, I love it. I feel like we're running parallel here with the focus on people. So champion people, unlock potential, I think is awesome. When we were really thinking about, in the early days of Rocket IT, how we were going to define our purpose and what we're really after, we gave that a lot of thought about, well, what is it that makes us feel most successful? And for us, what makes us feel most successful is when we've really made a difference in someone's lives. And yes, that often means we're talking about clients, but it is at least as important, if not more so, when we're talking about our own staff. And so I read somewhere years ago that you want to keep these kinds of things to 3 to 5 words so that you could remember them and not just be a poster on the wall somewhere. And we worked hard on that. We came up with help people thrive. Mm-hmm. So we're winning. We have 3, and you had 4. No, I love it. I think that's so important to have something that you can really drive for. And like you, gosh, it's just so great when somebody comes along and they join the team, and maybe they are early in their career or maybe they're restarting their career. We see that a lot as well. And when they turn into, okay, they've joined our leadership team, or they're taking on more responsibility, or they've been promoted to a new role, that feels really good. And we feel like we had a hand in that, and we've created a place where they can accomplish those kinds of goals and achievements. Yes, sometimes that means that they are promoted into a role somewhere else. And we try to celebrate that too. I'm probably not as good-natured about it as you are. We work hard to invest in our folks, and when they leave, it's a loss in a small organization like ours. But at the same time, there is a sense of pride that comes from feeling like, wow, I remember when I hired that guy or that girl, and they came in and 2 years of experience and early in their career, and now look at them, pretty amazing stuff. So we love that too.
Hey guys, I'm David Greer, and I'm the publisher of the Guide to Gwinnett, and we are so excited this year to be working with the Chamber to produce what we think is going to be the biggest, best, most comprehensive guide to Gwinnett ever. Going to be a lot of pages in there that tout the Chamber's services, and basically just a pro-business cheer for all you guys out there working day to day, making Gwinnett what it is. So I invite all of you to step up and advertise. We've got some special deals for Chamber members, exclusive deals, special discounts. Call on us if we can help you. Look forward to having you in this year's Guide to Gwinnett.
We always talk about the Gwinnett Chamber or partnership Gwinnett are two, big organizations that our alumni are everywhere. And that's how we feel better about ourselves when they leave. Oh, look at our alumni association growing.
Sure.
Well, Matt, I love that you turned the mission statement into a contest. Because the Gwinnett Chamber mission statement is champion business.
Oh, wow.
2 words.
Oh, no.
So I'm in first place. So thank you.
You're definitely winning.
I'm incredibly competitive. So
Congratulations.
Got really excited.
Good job.
Same thing. We had heard you got to keep it condensed. And I love the action in all of our mission statements. That's important. And so I wanted to circle back on the belonging and the meeting people where they're at. Like that was a concept that I don't think we were talking about more than 4 or 5 years ago. And I don't know. I think change is difficult, even the change you want. But I was like, I don't know about that. That feels too, touchy-feely. But now that's how we lead. And I'm so glad. I'm not surprised that was important to all of you and such an important part of who you guys are. But I just, it was different. But man, makes just, it's better. And versus I think for the group, the age that we all are at, that when we showed up for work in our 20s, it was not be yourself. It was adapt and be exactly like how everyone else is in the office, which I think really ties back into where being inclusive is. And there's so much data behind this that when you have a leadership team that all is the same, if you had 10 women on a leadership team that were all within 10 years of each other, that's the same life experiences. 10 men, whatever that might be, having it, and there's so much data behind the success of a company when the leaders are from different backgrounds, gender, age, racial backgrounds. There's just so much data there. But you could either expound on what I was just saying, and then because I do have another thing I want is like, has there been any pitfalls with that? Anything that comes up to either one of you?
Yeah, well, think about it from our perspective. I mean, we live and die on our client relationships. And I've told this story a couple of times before, but I think it's illustrative of kind of what we're getting at. I can recall very vividly, it was probably 5.5 years ago. I was in Baytown, Texas, south of Houston, and one of our local field leaders was taking me around to see certain clients. And literally in Baytown, sharing a property line was an IKEA facility and a Walmart facility, and the distribution centers. And so I go into each one of them, and IKEA was very Eurocentric, and they had nap rooms, they had nice music playing, and I'm sitting there going, man, there's a certain profile here that's going to flourish in this kind of environment. There's another kind of profile that we may place here that this is going to maybe not match what they're looking for. We walked next door to Walmart, and Walmart was not better or worse, but just incredibly different. Very regimented. Everything was clean. Everything was sterile is probably not the right word, but it was that there was not an ounce of dirt on the floor. And it was just a certain mentality and mindset. And that's every business. Every bit to your point a minute ago, Nick. I mean, every business has their own unique and disparate culture, I think, in large part. And particularly brands like I'm talking about with IKEA and Walmart, and to use that example. And so I'm sitting there going, you know what? If I place 100 people at this Walmart facility, how do I make sure those 100 people are more of a match for that type of culture? So those people, not only are they a match and the client's going to be happy for us, but those people are going to be happy for it. It's more akin to what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. And so we've got some matching technology embedded into our placement technology that we can say, you know what? Nick's a better fit over here. Here's where he's been in the past. Here's the jobs he's had. Here's his productivity. Here's what he's provided feedback on the client for us with. Nick's going to be a better fit for this client. He's going to feel more included and feel more of a sense of belonging with this client. He's going to gel with the culture much better. He can be himself much more so with this client versus these other 10. So that enables me to say, I'm going to place Nick here. And our clients come back and say, man, Nick was a great placement for you guys. We want to take him full time because he fits the culture so well for what we're trying to do. He fits the mentality of our current worker base. How did you guys find the Nick? We get that all the time, just simply because we think about how do we place that person where they can truly be themselves, truly let their own talents and their own personalities flourish in an environment. And not to say that the same person and again, I'm using those two examples again, couldn't be successful in a Walmart and be successful in an IKEA facility, but just very unique, disparate, different cultures. And you know, some people can walk into an IKEA facility, distribution center, and it's just going to be, hey, this isn't me, or vice versa with a Walmart. So again, to use those examples, I think it's just kind of points out what we're talking about here, and it goes back to our own company when we started probing those guys to say, you know, can you be yourself here at work? You know, how do you feel? You know, when you're at work, and there's a lot of quantifiable data under the how you feel question. They can feel a little bit soft sometimes and touchy-feely. So a lot of quantifiable data that we pull from just to make sure we're opening the doors and making certain that our colleagues, that our employees feel like this is the place that I belong. This is where I want to be. I don't have to put on airs or be somebody that I'm not. Are there downfalls? Maybe to your question, always. Anytime, you know, it's, hey, you're trying to be all things to all people. Not really. I'm trying to set up, you know, based on the core values. I heard a speaker one time say, you know, and I'll butcher the statement that he made. He said, you know, a company's culture is formed by habits established when they live their core values. And again, just like our mission, our purpose, champion people unlock potential, but we're very clear. We have 4 core values, but we're very clear on those 4 values. Make sure, A, what's the resonance it has with our teams? B, are we pointing out examples where we lead by those core values? And then C, make sure we celebrate when people are leading by them. I start every single one of my weekly leadership meetings with, first folks kind of looked at me kind of cross-eyed or rolled their eyes maybe. Every single one of our leadership
Internally,
meetings.
they were rolling their eyes.
And they may still do that, yeah. But every single one of our leadership meetings walking in saying, all right, guys, examples over the last week or so where you guys have seen our core values and actions. And, you know, again, after a couple of years, the team's adapted to it. Said, man, I want to call out some relationships first. Win as one. See further. Better always. And here's illustrative examples of where our teams, maybe a recruiter in the branch or maybe one of our leaders, truly exemplified that value. And the more we can call that out, the more we can develop that culture, the more we can form those habits, the more we can be who we want to be, who our culture defines and our purpose defines us as, and maybe not trying to be all things to all people. But there are always people that say, look, this isn't me, and that's okay. I mean,
What I like about what you do at your meeting is it becomes a habit. You're talking about it every week. I bet every single person on your, I obviously already know, but you stated it. Everyone knows your mission statement. I mean, Matt a moment later was quoting it. But your core values, there's not a person on your leadership team that doesn't know it and could define it because it's part of, and they're prepared for it. And if they're doing that with the CEO, they're doing it with their teams as well. I think that's super smart. It's actually, it's to have a mission statement and you're not living it or even talking about it. It's the opposite of the culture you're trying to create. It's just now words.
Right.
Thank you, Billy. Matt, to you,
Yeah.
same question.
Great question. I'm thinking about it, and my perspective is perhaps a little different just in terms of size of organization. We're a small business. We've always been under 50 employees. We're still well under 50 employees. And so when we have our weekly meetings, it's with the entire staff. And I would say that something I sort of realized early on when I started hiring folks in my business career, I originally had this idea, especially when we were under 10 employees, that I wanted a really flat organization. I wanted everyone to have access to me and for me to have access to everyone at all levels in the organization. And so I was very intentional early on about, okay, we're not going to have a bunch of different assistant managers and things like that. Everybody's going to report to me and that'll be great. And we sort of got stuck somewhere around, I don't know, about $1 million in revenue. And I was like, what is going on here? I can't seem to figure this out. And then I heard a quote somewhere, and I honestly don't remember where it came from. I had to look it up in preparation for our discussion today. It turns out it comes from John Maxwell. And I'll maybe botch this as well, but it's something along the lines of the growth of every organization is limited by the capacity of its leadership. And man, that was an aha for me. Like, oh man, that's what's wrong. We're stuck at $1 million because there's only so much of me to go around as the only leader in the organization. We need to have some more structure. We need to build the business up. And what I didn't want is carbon copies of Matt Hyatt over and over again. That would basically be the exact same problem. I needed people that had a different perspective than I did, and different background. I needed people that were more technical than I was. I needed people that had some more business experience, that might have had a formal education and some of the challenges that we were going through. I needed that, and so we sort of backed into inclusivity in that terms of just I need different talent to come to the table and help me grow this thing.
Thank you for sharing all that. By the way, one thing that I've clearly heard from you, it was John Maxwell, then it was Jeremy, is we don't have all the answers. We have to go look other places.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And Jeremy's work is fantastic.
It is.
John Maxwell, I think he's got the Hall of Fame, Amazon Hall of Fame award like 3 times over or something. That guy's written a couple of books that have been successful. I had a funny experience when they were opening up it was the groundbreaking for the John Maxwell Training Center right here in the Sugarloaf area where we're located. And I got to introduce John. Well, I did it pretty briefly because I'm just this guy, and here's this guy who's got a global brand. And he critiqued me after. He was like, never give up a microphone. You should talk for at least 5 minutes. So that's John's fault, y'all.
You've really taken that apart, Nick.
Yeah, no kidding. I was going to say maybe the worst and best person at the same time to say something like that too. Yeah, just keying off what Matt said just a minute ago, one thing to commend yourself on, just the self-awareness. I think it's the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership or something like that. That's Maxwell's book. And in that is the law of the lid that you pointed out.
Yeah, and that's actually where I read the quote came from.
That's exactly it. And I see so many, whether it's business founders or even leaders of business saying, you know, I don't know why we're not growing. We just kind of hit a plateau. It must be the market. It must be my people. It must be something else. Look in the mirror, because once you do that, it's the law of the lid. You're the lid a lot of times on that. So
how did I do on the quote?
You
I got
nailed
pretty
it.
close. Huh?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay, good.
You did not butcher it at all.
Yeah,
You
thank
nailed
you.
it. Yeah,
You're winning.
yeah. The other thing I'd say too, just more diverse perspectives. I remember when I was at racetrack, and this was probably 10, 15 years ago, our head of HR comes walking in one day, and we were having our one-on-one, and she's like, "Oh, I did some benchmarking down at Chick-fil-A's campus the last day or so." I'm like, "Oh, great, good. You know, we can start selling chicken sandwiches in our stores now." And she goes, No. They have this thing called a listening strategy." I'm like, "Oh gosh." And then I started rolling my eyes a little bit. Listening strategy. That sounds a little bit uncomfortable for me. What is the listening strategy? And the more she talked about it, the more it resonated with me and made sense to me. That same leader of HR is currently with my current company, Employee Bridge,
Nice.
over HR. And we are deploying a very aggressive, continue to deploy a very aggressive listening strategy. Two things that I would say that we do, among others, to make sure we get those diverse perspectives in our ears, and make sure we from the folks that are sitting with the fancier titles in the organization all the way down to the recruiter that started yesterday morning, and make sure we're having those shortening that gap of communication as much as we can. One thing we do is focus groups. In fact, when I was walking in this morning, coming down the escalator with Lisa, I was listening in on a focus group we're having with BDMs, diverse set of folks, all talking about current challenges in the business, what we can do better, what we're doing great that we can triple down on, and that sort of thing. So I probably drive our teams crazy with some of these focus groups that we have on a regular, constant basis. So let's look at our leadership team, the composition of our leadership team, make sure we've got an eye on having different backgrounds, perspective, experiences, and that sort of thing. Absolutely. But really the bigger way that I want to make sure we get those is to make sure we're listening constantly to our teams, whether it's the focus groups. Every single week I send out a message to our entire company, and it could be on anything. It could be a leadership lesson I saw on LinkedIn that maybe Nick posted. It could be something I saw in the business. It could be something different. It can be anything. And I write it on Sunday afternoons. I love to write, and it goes out Monday mornings. The reason I do that, it's partially to hopefully they get a nugget of goodness in whatever lands in their inbox Monday mornings at 9 o'clock Eastern time. I hope that's the case. But the bigger reason is they often respond to me. Oh my goodness, that resonated with me. Oh gosh, Bill, cool message, but you missed the boat. Here's something else you need to be thinking about. And just that level of diversity and perspective is absolutely critical. It is the best thing that we do, frankly, that listening strategy that 10, 15 years ago I rolled my eyes at.
I thought you were referring to your message was the best thing you do.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. You'd have to poll our team. We'll do a focus group with my team on Billy's messages, weekly messages.
So okay, how does that feedback loop, how does that work? So you're doing some listening sessions, and so just take me through that another time.
Yeah, so same process for all of them, whether it's the 3 times a year Gwinnett surveys, whether it's the...
Okay, and I had a question about that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that in your very beginning. Is that that's to your internal team,
Yep.
or is it the external talent that you're placing, or both?
No, it's our internal team.
Okay, I was curious about that.
Yeah, it's our internal team. It goes to those guys. We do, if it closes on a Friday, the survey closes on a Friday, Monday afternoon we've got an all-company call where we say, hey, here's the 3 themes that we heard from you guys. Here's where we did well, and here's where we've got opportunity. And then shortly thereafter, I don't want to rush the action, but shortly thereafter we come up with, hey, here's the 3 themes. Here's the 3 areas we can get better at. Here's the action we have behind it. And here's how we're going to track this. And we'll continue to update you guys along the way in various capacities. So that's the process. But whether it's the 3 times a year surveys that we do, or even if it's the focus groups, the 20 folks that participated in the focus group this morning coming back and saying, hey, 3 things, boom, here's what we're going to do about it. The pitfall, going back to your question a minute ago, that we've seen sometimes is saying, hey, you said we could do 3 things better. We're going to do 2 of them. The third one we can't do, and here's why. Mm-hmm. And most people are pacified by, we can't do it if it's a rational reason why, but I always get the piece of saying, that was one of my suggestions that we get better, and you are ignoring it. I'm like, I didn't ignore it. We didn't ignore it. It's just whether it's financially it's not feasible, or whether it's just for whatever reason we can't do it right now. We'll do it some other time, or we can't do it. And explaining the why behind why we can't do something and the why behind why we are doing certain things, I think is absolutely critical to your team.
I think that's bold leadership, number one, to ask, and addressing what sometimes it's a one-off. This person has a burning thing that's important to them, but and maybe no one else cares. But even just addressing it is, and the answer is we don't have it. It doesn't meet the priority or the budget for this year, and we'll take it in consideration when we do this again next year. That's actually that's typically an acceptable answer, because you can't do everything all the time. There's not unlimited resources, and resources isn't always money. I mean, you're rolling out a new thing. The size of your company, probably a little easier for Rocket IT and the Gwinnett Chamber to roll something out. But but addressing it. I was very nervous doing opinions and doing surveys at the beginning, because there's going to be an opinion I don't agree with, or the leadership team doesn't agree with. And when you pull that Band-Aid off and you actually go through the process, I think people respect you more. They feel listened to, they feel heard, and it just creates a better culture. So hats off to you.
I was thinking a little bit about, and I'm sure both of you have this in your organizations, meeting structure and frequency of how often people get to talk with someone who has influence in the organization. And so you mentioned, for example, a weekly leadership team meeting. We do that as well, a weekly staff meeting, an all-staff meeting. We also do one-to-ones with every single team member every single week. And I think that's a really important.
By their leader.
By their mentor,
okay.
Which is often their manager, but not always. So there are cases where your mentor might be different than your manager. Someone has very specific experience in a certain technology or something like that. We might pair them up together so that they're able to help one another out more. But that, I think, is also something that's helped us a lot in hearing what's going on in the organization and what someone, whether it's an intern, even our interns have a weekly one-to-ones with their mentor. But whether it's an intern or a level 1 TAC or someone else new in their career, or our senior leaders, they're meeting every single week. And there's an opportunity there. And by the way, those one-to-ones are not management sessions. They're not, hey, Bob, these are the 5 things that I want you to work on this week, and here's how you did last week. It's not that at all. We're of the belief that Bob came to work at Rocket IT because he's passionate about whatever it is he does, whether it's marketing or technology or something else. And we want to help him over hurdles. We want to remove roadblocks. And so we're there to help. What's going on? What has your focus this week, Bob? Anything I can help you overcome or get past? Those kinds of questions. And that's a great way, I think, because it's worked in our organization, to make sure everyone feels like they've got a voice in what's happening in the company.
Well, I do love the commonality of the meeting structure. We're big fans of Patrick Lencioni, or Lencioni. I've heard it pronounced 100 different ways. But we follow his strategy. He has a great book, Death by Meetings. Meetings.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's a great book, and it's an incredible process. The thing that was probably the biggest thing that we used to have these staff meetings. This is go back 10 years ago in partnership with Gwinnett, and none of us liked it. But I as the leader, I would say, hey, does anyone have any better ideas? Anyone experience a different meeting process? And there was just a consensus that this wasn't the most effective way to do it, but nobody could come up with another idea. And so someone had given me that book. I probably was lamenting, and we switched to that process. And it just never occurred to me that the leader doesn't actually need to lead the meeting. So we alternate, and really it's just kind of sometimes whoever grabs the dry erase marker first, and we lead the they're leading the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the burning issues? And we do a tactical meeting, we do a standing meeting 2 days a week, and then we do our strategic meetings. To me, the strategic meetings, either a half a day or a full day, depending on the month. We do one full day once a quarter. There was just all these issues that just in the day-to-day of leading your company, you never got to. And so it really stifled strategic change. And his process has been incredible for us. We are such a better organization for it. So why don't we end with this? What's maybe one of the best books or podcasts, business related, that you've enjoyed recently?
Well, first of all the Jim Collins books. I recently went through the ASA, American Staffing Association, just put on this event with Collins, and it was 150 people in the room, and Jim Collins actually led us through some of the principles that he applies in Good to Great. And so it's hard to go away from that book. I read it for the first time like 15 years ago, and I've probably read it 5 times since. And every single time there's something different that I'm like, holy cow, I never thought about that. And obviously business change cycles, we go through different business cycles, economic cycles, and technology impacts business. But all of a sudden, boom, it's like, boom, hits me in the eyes and said, I never thought about that lesson. And so I've always loved that book. That's always been kind of my go-to when people say, what is the best one you've ever read?
And it's timeless, right?
It's timeless.
Yeah.
It's timeless. And even a few months ago when I go and, it's Jim Collins himself up on stage and you're sitting there wide-eyed and almost intimidated by it a little bit, just hearing him talk about principles that he has had in that book, that he's researched over the last couple of decades, how we've applied them in our business, creating flywheels and hedgehog effects and stuff like that. I mean, to me, that is an incredible reminder for every business leader to go and take a look at every few years. The book that you've never heard of, most likely, is called Uncommon Service, and it's an author, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Frances Frei or Frances Fry. It's Frei. And I'll say this, the book's good, not great, to tie back into Collins' title again. The book's good. The first 2 titles are great. And one of the biggest
She's
lessons...
probably not going to ask you for...
She may not.
To write a forward for
Yeah,
her.
she may not. She's a Harvard professor and it's built on case studies, obviously, like most Harvard books are. But she wrote this book. I saw her speak probably 10, 12 years ago. One of the things that resonated big time with me that is so simple, but yet so few businesses do appropriately or do well, or even think about and have the discipline to do. And I'll butcher this quote, but her point was the best businesses, the most profitable businesses are the companies that have the courage or are willing to or have the courage to be bad at something. And then she's like, she points at each of us. It's like 10 of us in a room. She's doing this workshop with us. What are you bad at? What is your company bad at? And we're all just kind of fumbling around. I'm like, look, it's hard to go around my room, leadership room, and say, hey, head of marketing, what are you bad at? Are we going to be bad at marketing? Are we going to be bad at technology? Are we going to be bad at operations, bad at finance? You can't really do that. But her point was around discipline. What are you going to have discipline to say, I'm going all in here, and I'm going to be bad over there? And not the best example, not as good of an example now, but the example she used 10, 12 years ago was Southwest Airlines. She's like, they want to be great at 2 things. They want to market to the flying public, not business travelers, but to the flying public. So and the 2 biggest, most critical items to the flying public is fair pricing, not good pricing, not low pricing, but fair pricing. They don't want to be ripped off if they have to book travel 2-3 days in advance to go to a family funeral or something like that, sporadic. So fair pricing and customer service. And she goes, they have nailed it, and here's the measures they do on both of those every year for the last 20 years or whatever it's been.
And they're really bad at business travel.
And they're bad at everything else. And she had, again, the case study outline there. And that, to me, I remember going back, and I don't think it hit me immediately, but going back to my team and saying, what are we going to be bad at? This is, again, the racetrack days, convenience store days, but what are we going to be bad at? And it took us a long time to kind of wrap our heads around, and it's all around business discipline. We're going to be great here, and maybe not bad, but we're not going to do this over here. And that's where all businesses struggle. We're going to be great at everything. We're going to be all things to all people. No, what is your niche? What is your unique niche? Where are you going to focus? What are you going to be great at? What are you not going to be so great at?
For sure. I mean, it's hard to listen to what you're saying because I'm trying to think, what are we going to be bad at? So we'll circle back on that.
Humility.
You're right. Matt, what's a podcast, book recently, or your favorite? You can answer whatever you want.
Maybe you've heard, you and I have our mutual friend Jeremy that we mentioned earlier. And he is, in fact, a best-selling author. He's got a number of books under his, what am I looking for?
Portfolio,
Yeah,
resume.
thank you. Yeah, sure. He's under his belt is what I was looking for.
okay.
Yeah, he's published a number of books over the years. But there's one in particular when we're talking about inclusivity and diversity of our workforce that has made a huge difference in my life, and it's called 5 Voices. It is a terrific book of helping to understand different perspectives. And of course, if you've got somebody sitting across the table from you who has a different set of experiences, a different background, a different point of view, might even look different than you, sometimes it's a little hard to figure out, all right, how do we communicate? How do we both get value from these conversations, and how does that work? 5 Voices for me was a real eye-opener because it helped me understand, not just in business, but in friendships and in my relationship with my wife and my kids. It's been super helpful in understanding, hey, we're wired differently, and our perspective is different, not just because of our history and our background, but because we were born a little differently, and our brains work a little differently, and so we're going to naturally have different perspectives. And as you might guess, all 5 of the voices have incredible value that might be different from one another. You and I are wired a little bit differently, and we each bring something different to the table. My wife and I are wired a little differently. We each bring something to the table. And to me, that makes a really great relationship and a really great organization when you can put those different voices together. So that's a book that has been impactful in my life, and I'm so glad that I was able to experience it. Now, here's one maybe you haven't heard of. This actually came from another local entrepreneur. So Brian Perdue runs, actually I haven't talked to him in years, but he ran a company called Salon 124 and several others. And he actually won a Chamber Small Business Person of the Year years ago. Yeah. And when that happened, I learned about Brian. I reached out to him and asked him if we could have lunch, and I'd just love to kind of hear from him and know him a little bit. And so I was talking with him about this incredible business that he'd built. It, like a lot of small businesses, amazing stuff going on that maybe you wouldn't know about outside of our little local community here. I wanted to know how he created that and where his inspiration came from. And so he told me about a book that he had read. This is probably, I bet you it was 20 years ago. And I think he told me he read the book 20 years prior. So we're talking about an old book. Okay. But it was a book called Pushing Up People by a fellow named A.L. Williams, another local entrepreneur, right? And at the time, it was out of print. I was able to find one on the used marketplace, a little tattered copy of this book. I later went back and showed Brian. I was like, where did you get that? It's just pretty cool. I think it's actually been republished now. I think you can order a new copy online. But we were talking earlier about finding ways, hidden potential in these folks that might join your team. And again, sometimes they're young and newer in their career, but often they're not. They've restarted their career, or they've been sort of stuck in a career for a long time, and helping them to uncover their hidden potential is what this book is about. And not just it's kind of a forceful word. We're not pulling people up, we're pushing them up, and so we're giving them a lift of what's already there. Oh my gosh, powerful stuff. So that's another book that has been impactful in the way that I try to run my business.
Well, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciated this. Appreciate your time today. You're very important guys, important organizations. Both your companies, big influence on the Gwinnett Chamber, big influence on the Gwinnett community in Metro Atlanta. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah,
I
our
appreciate
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.